Hello there. Yesterday, National finally released its tax plan, and it was fascinating to sit down and look at the presentation itself. Now, as somebody who is not an economist, I am not qualified in any shape, way, or form to say if this is going to be great for the economy or bad for the economy or good or bad for different members of society within that economy or specific groups that are represented by targeted policy. But, well, do some research on this one. There'll be a million people online telling you what their opinions are, what their viewpoints are, and what their experience is. Do some research and form your own opinions about the overall big picture. What I found fascinating, though, was some certain individual elements that came through within this presentation. Like, I have no idea that there was a loophole that overseas based online casinos were using to operate in this country without paying tax. Absolutely agree that that needs to be closed down. But to say that at the same time that you're going to take off GST on online purchases for goods and services through an app, that felt a little bit inconsistent. And I'm certainly no fan of the idea of getting rid of subsidies for low income earners and disabled people for public transport, and getting rid of the Auckland fuel tax is one of those sort of hot button sounding issues. But that fuel tax, while it doesn't get used for light rail, as they pointed out, has been used to build things like wharves, bike lanes, bus lanes, and footpaths. So it does have some use, and having that gone from our tax system suddenly means that that cost gets thrown onto Auckland Council and Auckland Transport. And when you've got a council run by somebody who is determined to slash as much as he can from the budget, this is just passing the buck on issues around transportation in Tamaki Makaurau. What I found most fascinating, though, was the use of the language that came out during this. You've heard the term the squeezed middle quite a bit over the last few days, which National has been pushing as who this budget is aimed at. But what they're not saying is exactly who is squeezing it, other than obviously the government at the moment. But the reality isn't necessarily like that. You've got a group of high income earners who are paying a tax rate significantly less than the average person. And you've got lower income earners who aren't doing that but are somehow still squeezing them, which implies it's in a bad way by basically being a suck on resources. But it's not just an implication of that. Nicola Willis actually said during the press conference that for her, middle squeeze New Zealanders are the hardest working New Zealanders in the country, which means that she sees low income earners as not hard working. And when asked specifically by the press what this budget means for low income earners, it's maybe $10 a week, because the numbers that they put out were fortnightly, not weekly. And the economy will be amazing and inflation will come down, which means petrol and food costs come down, and they'll get the benefits of that, which doesn't seem like very much at all for low income earners, and a little bit more sort of wishy-washy pie in the sky thinking if you believe that inflation is the only reason that everything is so expensive, especially when you see that the lead cause of inflation since the pandemic has actually been corporate greed, as shown here. And that's not going to change just because inflation's coming down. So, yeah, it was an absolutely fascinating thing to sit down and watch. And again, not an economist, cannot judge everything on a big picture, but some of the little policies that came through and a lot of the language that was used shows really specifically that this is not a budget designed to help low income earners in any shape, way, or form.